I give it all to
Well, hey, welcome everyone to our second episode of the No Bad Questions podcast, hosted by Hope Church. My name is Walt. I'm one of the pastors at our Midtown location, and I'm really excited to get into it with another round of really good questions that our community has submitted. The idea behind this podcast was that really some of the best questions are often the ones that people are afraid to ask. Maybe they feel like a question is inappropriate, or it's too vulnerable, or it's too scary, or the stakes are too high. But I found that when those questions get asked, when they're put out to the room, like that's when the real good stuff happens. When we really get to engage topics that aren't just surface level, but are deeply meaningful and important. And so we want to be able to create a space where we could engage with some of these real questions, honest questions, in a way that's fun, collegial, that holds tension together, that maintains his vision for community and curiosity. And I'm excited to get into it. In our first podcast episode, we spoke about the topic of death. It was a pretty heavy one, but I was really grateful for the kind of conversation and thoughts that flowed from that. And our second topic is very different, but perhaps also maybe a little bit scary to some folks. And we got a number of questions around dating, especially dating in the city, dating in the church, how we're supposed to understand and approach dating. So we got some really great questions from our community on this. And I've invited a really good group of friends and colleagues here to engage in that conversation. And I want to give them a chance to both introduce themselves, and then I would love for them to describe in one sentence their relationship with dating today. And we'll start it off with you, Andy.
Thanks, Walt. Thanks, everyone, for having me. My name is Andy Choi. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Do Good. Our core product is called NAS, Nonprofit as a Service. So I run a technology company allowing people to start and maintain their own nonprofit. So that's my day job. And when it comes to dating, my relationship with dating right now is I am dating intentionally.
Hi, I'm Jaclyn Childress. I'm the Next Gen Director here at Hope Church NYC. And my relationship with dating would be that I'm open to dating in real life, but not necessarily that many opportunities. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Dorcas Antwi. I'm a pastoral intern here at Hope Church, and I am currently attempting to date IRL or on the apps as I figure out what I want for my life in terms of permanent partnership. Yeah.
Great. I'm really glad all three of you are here. Thanks for agreeing to be a part of this conversation. I'd love to hear just a little bit, like, what about this dating conversation is important to you? And then we'll jump into some of the questions from our community.
I'll start. So I grew up in a community and a culture where there's just an expectation that you date, you get married, you have a family. And I assumed that would be the path that I would follow. I assumed that at some point I'd meet the right guy, the best guy, get married, and we'd have kids. And I guess all of this would happen before I was 30 because that's just what happened around me. And that's not what's happening in my life. And I have found that I'm not sure whether or not that's the path I want, even as, my family and loved ones really want it for me. So yes, my path right now is trying to date so that I can figure out what I want for myself.
Yeah, I can hop in there just kind of in a similar vein. Most of the relationships in my family, they met in high school or they met in college. A lot of my family has not dated kind of outside of school, like meeting as high school sweethearts. And so for me, kind of once I either graduated high school or graduated college, I really just kind of had no concept for dating outside of being around people that you're with all the time. And then you add, I graduated during the pandemic, so I was working remotely. There was no real human interaction outside of really just remote work. And I think there's just a lot of questions around it, not only in the church community, but just trying to figure out like what dating looks like, especially now with technology and apps. And I think there's just a lot of questions, and maybe especially in the church community, that a lot of people maybe don't want to ask when it comes to dating.
That is great. Like, I'm excited for this conversation. I think the unique POV that I kind of bring is I also run a ministry here in the city called Christians in Tech. We do a lot of different things, but probably the most popular one is our singles event. So we host the largest New York City Christian singles event, which has literally thousands of people the past year and a half come through our events. Our last event drew close to 500 people, had about 320 people on the wait list. So I think, again, I see a part of the city and just kind of, the dating scene from a very unique point of view. But also, I just love to frame this conversation because I do have a lot of these conversations now just because of the ministry I'm in. But I'm not a dating expert. I can only share kind of my POV and my experience. I am not saying I'm an expert in the theology of dating or anything of that sort. I'm just going to be sharing kind of where I'm at and how God is speaking to me in my life and how I'm navigating, a very tricky part of our life, right? But that's something I see as incredibly important. So I'm always excited to have these conversations.
Yeah. Cluster, if I may use that.
We'll save the expert commentary for Jaclyn and Dorcas.
Definitely not.
With our years of expertise.
It's going to be great. We got some great questions. Again, these are all from people in our community. So let's jump into the first one. It's got a couple little aspects to it. One of our Midtown members asked this. They said, I've been a Christian for almost 5 years now, and I'm always wrestling with the idea that as Christians, we can only date and marry other Christians. Would that not be realistic, since there can only be so many Christians available? What if I never end up finding any Christians I meet attractive? All right, big one, loaded. Let's jump in. Anybody want to take it away?
Yeah, I clustered on Andy's point about just speaking from our own perspective and experience. Not an expert here, but I personally want to date someone who is Christian. And when I say Christian, I mean actively living out their faith daily. Because there's an idea of what my intimate life would look like with a partner. And it's difficult for me to imagine dating someone who isn't already on that path, because personally, I don't want to date someone who is not of the same faith tradition as me, because I want to share the same value source. I've shared with other friends, we can have similar values to people who are of different faith traditions, different worldviews, but it is important to me to have the same value source, that you believe that we are living with and involved with an interactive living God. I want that in my partner. And granted, I say partner, even though we're talking about dating, because even though I'm not necessarily someone who's like, I want to date someone and then we're going to date and we're going to get married. It's hard for me to not have that lens, even in the beginning stages of romantic investigation, if I can use that phrase. So I totally understand that question, because there are some amazing people who are not Christian. They're great. They're attractive. And we live alongside them in a city as diverse as New York. If that is a path that you want to take, then yeah, I would say there's probably going to be some issues that come up in the ways that you might live your life differently, having different value sources. And what do you want to do when you integrate your lives together? Those are some questions that you'd have to ask if that's a path you want to take. I'm just thinking on that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think for me, something I have to kind of remind myself of when I'm thinking, what if I never find, if there's, never find a Christian attractive, or one if there's not someone out there for me, I think I have to remind myself just all of the ways God has just done really incredible big things in my life and really changed my life in so many ways. And I don't think he neglects this area of my life, or neglects that part, or doesn't see it. I think there's purpose in the waiting, as hard as that can be at times, but also, he does big miracles and big things. And so I feel like there's always that room for that to happen.
So you would say you are also waiting for a Christian partner?
Yes. Mm-hmm. I would say I don't really know how much thought or pressure I'm putting on the waiting, mm-hmm. Just as I, live my life.
Yeah. I want to take away waiting and say looking for or hoping for a Christian partner. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, if I was if a friend were to ask that question, and on a personal level, asking for my response, I would answer it in kind of three different ways. One, I just don't believe in the posture of like a scarcity mindset, right? Like this fear that like, oh, dude, what if there's not? I mean, there's 2 billion Christians. Like, there's quite a few of us, right? Like, and there's a lot here in New York City too. So I think like, all right, where's that fear and kind of scarcity mindset coming from, right? Like, so then I would ask that deeper question of like, okay, there's I don't think there's a lack of people, right? And it reminds me of this C.S. Lewis quote where he was talking about friendship, and he was like, you think that your friends is just by pure chance? Like, like think about if they were just born a different day, didn't happen to live in this city. If you, by chance, when you first met, asked the wrong questions, like had weird vibes, he was like, just his approach, like how divine was it that the two of you became lifelong friends? And I think of that to a more even elevated level when it comes to our partners, right? Like, if we, whatever your theology when it comes to like, destiny or, soulmate, whatever you believe in that, like I do believe that we have a God that is very intentional, right? And so I think, again, the scarcity mindset is something I would say, hey, I think that would need to be reevaluated and kind of where that comes from. I think the other side of it then is values. Like when I'm looking for a partner and when I say intentionally is like the number one priority is shared values. And if Christ and my faith is the center of my life and the foundation of my life, which it is, to meet someone or a potential partner that does not share those values, to me, does not make for a lasting relationship, right? That automatically creates tension and friction. So then it's my question to this friend, if I was having this conversation, would be like, what are the core values of your life that are you're not willing to compromise, right? And then I think the third piece to this is like, putting all of that together is like, how are you pursuing that intentionally, right? Like if there's not a lack of people and what your foundation is, like your values, then how do you go about creating space, margin to pursue something that is or is not important to you?
May I add some anecdotes as well? I grew up only seeing Christian relationships, like the intimate relationships that were around me were only Christians marrying other Christians. It wasn't until I kind of moved outside of the Ghanaian Pentecostal church where I started seeing and witnessing interfaith relationships. And I have seen them, just to be real, I have seen them go the distance. I'm thinking of one, they've been married for 30 years now. He's a Shinto Buddhist. She's a pretty devout Baptist, and they are making it work even though I don't necessarily understand it. I have someone within my family who thought she was done with love after a really difficult divorce with another Christian man, did find love with someone who does not profess faith in Christ, but who loves her deeply and down. And she thinks and believes that this is the marriage that she'll have until the end of her days. I do and have seen interfaith marriages work, at least from the outside. What I would pose to this question is like, what do you want? If you want someone who will love and support your faith and will sit down with you while you pray, then dating someone and marrying someone who is not Christian can work. I'm being really careful with my language because I'm just saying that anecdotally I've seen it and I'm seeing it work. But if the intimate life that you want to have in a partnership with your guy or girl is one that includes like praying fervently together, believing for things fervently together, how do you do that with someone who doesn't share the same value source, the same belief in the belief that this is a union between us and a God, that we are modeling ourselves after a savior? I think it's so important to ask yourself that question, because this person who's asking the question might be witnessing interfaith relationships that work and really be wondering, maybe I can do this. Maybe you can, but do you really want to? are the struggles that might come with an interfaith relationship something that you want to be involved in? I just wanted to share that, because if that's the perspective that they have, they're living their life seeing other interfaith relationships work, and they are feeling the scarcity, even though it may not be. It's a felt reality. Yeah. I just wanted to offer that there are hard questions that I would implore them to ask themselves now.
Thanks for that. I think something that I often hear is, I feel like, you spoke these questions of values, kind of like availability, like, somebody's like, all right, I'm really clear on my values. Like, I do believe that there are people out there who share similar values, who have like a similar vision and aspiration in dating as discernment towards marriage. But I just can't connect. Like, I can't find anybody like that, right? Or it's just really hard to kind of get into a relationship in a way that feels like, okay, there's like depth and closeness and, some momentum forward. Like, how would you all like respond to somebody who is in that situation, who is, clear on the values, believe that, there's plenty of efficiency, so to speak, but it's just having a hard time, like making a way forward?
I mean, hosting dating events, right? We see a lot of people that put their best foot forward, right? And I believe outside of receiving Christ in my life, like the most important decision that I'll make in my life is to pick my significant other. Like, that's family I get to pick, and that hopefully, the mother of my child, right? Like, is an incredibly like serious and intentional, like important decision. So that said, if that is literally, next to receiving Christ is that important, then the pursuit of that, I think, needs to be incredibly intentional, and it needs to be, if it's something I value, it needs to be a top priority for me, right? So then creating space, margin, planning. So like when I think about work, which is incredibly important for me, I plan it. I go to school for it. I educate myself. I build a team around it. Like, it's a whole ordeal, right? Like, so then if I consider family, marriage, and my significant other to be more important than my work, which I do, like, that requires a lot of effort and intentionality, right? And I think the other side to it then is like, what's the work that's being done in me, right? Like, how am I becoming a better man of God in order to be prepared for this ultimate decision, or, faith, whatever you want to call it, right? So we say this at our events very often. It's like, thank you for just showing up. Because it takes a lot of effort to just be vulnerable. Like, it takes a lot of effort to put yourself out there, right? So I think, like, what am I doing? What are you doing to, like, if this is something of value and something you're being intentional about, like, how are you moving towards this and investing into it? And how is God speaking into your life?
Yeah, and I think that's something I'm starting to see a lot just in my friend groups and with people that I'm talking to, is just not being, I guess, willing to meet the wrong people. I think you're going to meet a lot of wrong people in your life, or meet people that you don't vibe with, or, and I think that with maybe, especially with dating apps, those like filters have just gotten so specific. I mean, you can filter down to career, height, age, radius. I mean, it's gotten insane how like much you can filter it down. And I think a lot of my friends are hoping that like that will filter it so much that the person they go out with is great. But it's like you'll go on so many bad dates or meet so many people that you're like, oh, this is crazy. But I feel like we're getting to a point where like no one's open to that, or open to going on the bad date, or just trying to narrow down our algorithms so much that like the next person just has to be right because all the filters are checked. But I do think that there's something beautiful to life of meeting people from really different backgrounds, really different, maybe something you would never think of. Or like opposites attract. People say that all the time. Opposites attract, but then a dating app, it's like, I don't want one opposite. I need all of these things. But you're going to meet so many people that, they might end up being a great friend or a great person, but they, just willing to get out there and meet the wrong people.
Yeah. That's good. That's fascinating. And I do feel like that even dovetails to our second question a little bit, because you talk about, you can kind of do all this like pre-screen and you can try to like design like the perfect, partner, and then expect them to be sitting at a table across from you over dinner. But often it doesn't really shake out like that. And even if it is somebody you hit it off with, there still is a lot of work of like discernment around, right? Just because you're like, oh yeah, like you passed all the filter checks, like we're good to go. And our second question gets into this question around discernment. Like, how do we understand? And they lead with a really solid general question, and they bring in a couple of specifics. But the overarching question is this. Question number 2, what are some good questions to ask on dates to get a better understanding of someone's spiritual maturity? And they go on to say, I find that sometimes it's hard to understand the depth of someone's understanding of grace if they see faith as something more legalistic and rule-oriented instead of something life-giving, and if they're thinking about a relationship as a reflection of the way God relates to us. Very good question. But I want to start with that top point. Like, what are some good questions to ask on dates to get a better understanding of someone's spiritual maturity? Andy, you've been hosting a lot of these conversations.
Yeah.
Like, what have you seen? What advice would you give?
So, I mean, we, for our event, we literally developed our own app, right? Where you have to attend one of our IRL events, you have to take a questionnaire, and it asks about like your faith-based values, right? Like, how important is prayer life for you? How important is going to church or finding a community, a Christian faith-based community? And the reason we ask these questions is we're trying to match people that are equally yoked, right? Like, so, I mean, not to get overly biblical, but like, I mean, whenever we need to find an answer, we kind of have a book that gives us all of these answers, right? And the Bible is pretty, like all the answers are there, right? So then for us, when it comes to quote unquote filters, it's like, all right, like, are we asking the right questions is really what it comes down to, right? And I've always said this, like I think in life, like we have a lot of filters, right? Like, height, income, work, whatever those things are. And then there are things that pull us, right? And for me, in the Bible, there's a very particular word that I've been praying upon when I think about dating and dating intentionally is this word suitable, right? So in Genesis, when Adam and Eve, like, it was suitable. Like describing Eve to Adam that word, the Hebrew word, actually is often used in the Bible to describe God himself, right? So then it was, and his relation, like the relationship to Israel was like, it was suitable.
Yeah. And specifically that God was going to make a quote suitable helper
exactly
for Adam,
right? So then for me, it's like, what is suitable, right? Like who is suitable for me, and how, and am I suitable for someone else? Right. And that really changes like the questions that I ask. Right. So then, like the vanity questions are always there. We live in a broken world, and like the vanity things, absolutely, like those are things I filter for. But when I'm digging into it, it's like, all right, like what is the character of this person? Like what is that? Like if we were to disagree upon something, how would we go about resolving, it's simple things like that to just prayer life. Like how important is prayer? Like what is your relationship to the Holy Spirit, right? Like is the Bible, like reading the Bible, is that important to you, right? Like I think those are kind of like, because to me, to be suitable is like, these are incredibly important things to me, right? And if they're not valued to some degree, I'm not saying it has to be the same degree of everything, like there's probably going to be a disconnect, right? So I think I really understanding like what I'm looking for, right? But also understanding what I'm not looking for. I think oftentimes knowing what I don't want is sometimes more important than knowing what I do want.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That's good. And I think it speaks too to this reality of like, when we talk about it, especially like values, obviously there's almost like high level values, kind of like first importance things, like, we just did the whole series on the Apostles' Creed, kind of like the big rocks. But then even within the family of Christianity, like there's a lot of flavors, and some of them like maybe taste better or worse, to keep the analogy going. But I'm curious, like even kind of in terms of kind of drilling into like, okay, well, like the texture of a person's faith and where there's suitability, compatibility. How do you guys go around kind of learning more about, okay, when this person says they follow Jesus, like what does that look like? What are the things that are important to them? How do they live their life in a way that's being transformed by Jesus? Is the way that they're walking with Jesus complementary to the way that I'm walking with Jesus? How do you guys kind of get into the weeds on some of that stuff?
Yeah, I think for me, it's been realizing that it takes time. I think we have a very instant gratification culture of, I'm going to go on one date, learn all of these things about a person, and either call it or pursue. But I think really learning, when you're talking about someone's values and their heart, they can say a lot of things on a first date or a second date, but it will take time to kind of see how they live those things out, whether that's through service at church or their prayer life. And honestly, on a first date, like, you don't have to get into the depths of your prayer life. Like, I'm good. I don't need to know yet. Like some things I'm like, whoa, So I think that it takes a little bit of time, for me at least, to kind of peel the onion, if you will, and figure those things out. But I don't think that's wasting time. I think that maybe sometimes we get to the third, fourth, fifth date, it doesn't work out, and we're like, oh, I just wasted, a couple weeks, but it's, the time will pass anyway. So I think it's important to get to know those things, but it will take some time to see kind of the real person.
Yeah. I want to appreciate that what you're naming, kind of this wasted time piece, which almost gets into what Andy was saying earlier about like abundance versus scarcity. And I do hear often like, oh, I don't want, it's just a waste of time if this date goes on and doesn't end. And you're like, no, actually, there's something really good about being present to another person and engaging on a real level. Like, that's not a wasted experience. And I feel like I think it's important to keep hammering that home, especially in our culture, which is so geared towards instant satisfaction, like hitting all the filters, all that stuff. So yeah, thank you for naming that.
I think it also, what you were saying goes back to what, your previous comment about, it's okay to date someone who you don't necessarily agree with on all points. To figuring out like what your major issues and what your minor issues is so important. And then I think it's also okay when you meet someone, if you ask a question, they're like, hey, I actually don't know yet. I think that's also okay. We are all learning. I used to think that, I'll get married after I feel solid on all these theological points, but, I'm not there yet, and I don't know if I'll ever fully arrive when it comes to my theological conclusions. There's just so much to study and learn, and to unlearn, I think. So yeah, I was just thinking about that. Your comment about opposites do attract. There's very little room for that on the apps now, and I think we should be really intentional about creating room, for that. When it comes to asking questions, I pray. I'm praying a lot. Well, more now, because like I shared before, I am figuring out whether or not I want to be in a relationship. I don't know if I'm not committing on this podcast to being single for the rest of my life, but
you heard it here, folks.
Marketing.
It's on the internet now.
But as someone who's really sincerely been enjoying singleness and is figuring out, like, my prayer, a prayer that's been consistent in these last couple of years. Oh, I hope my mom doesn't watch this part, but prayer, because she will not like this prayer. But I've been praying, like, Lord, if there is something more for me outside of singleness, please tell me. I might need a burning bush moment, because what's going on right now and for the last couple of years feels really good. And if you have more for me outside of this, convince and convict me, because I don't feel it. I don't have that desire that I thought that would naturally come because I saw all of my peers getting married as I grew up. That has not been birthed within me. And so as I've been trying to date, I've been asking Holy Spirit for a lot of direction. Like, what are the questions that I should be asking? Because there's so much advice on dating, Christian dating, what to ask, when to ask. I'm like, specifically for my situation, because I think it's such a gift to have a faith with such a dynamic thing as the Holy Spirit. Like, what should I be bringing to this experience? Has been something that I've been asking. Haven't had many opportunities to ask those questions because my girlfriends know that my girlfriends know how the dating experience has been going. It sometimes doesn't get past a certain point. But yeah, I feel like asking Holy Spirit specifically for me, for my desires, for my questions, for the things I know and don't know about myself, what should I be asking, has been something I've been curious about.
I do want to make one point. I feel similarly to Dorcas in just the sense of not like being very content in my singleness and not necessarily feeling the, I guess, urgency or pull to a partner. And so I do want to recognize that I think it makes the meeting the wrong person, being okay wasting, it's not wasted time, at least easier for me. I do have friends who have wanted and desired a husband and kids or a wife and kids their whole lives. And I can't imagine just like the pain in that waiting. And so I do want to recognize that I come from a perspective of, time will pass, and it's, I can only imagine that meeting the wrong person or having those moments can feel really devastating in that time, if that's what you have desired and craved for your whole life. And so I do want to recognize that because I feel I have a different perspective on the waiting sense of things.
That's good. I want to add in my own question, unofficially submitted, but a lot of what I think the way that we've been talking about how people meet other people. We talked about the apps. Yeah. We talked about being in situations where you're sitting down with somebody, maybe for the first time, like trying to get to know them in a sense of like, okay, or do we want to continue dating one another? I'm curious about how you all think about dating from within a community that you're already a part of. And what I have frequently been hearing more and more is perhaps a reluctance to date from somebody, say, like who goes to the same church as you or is part of the same friendship group as you. Because if it goes a little sideways, if somebody gets hurt or whatever, then it's just really awkward. It feels not really worth the cost. The stakes feel a little too high. And yet I hold that intention with the fact that like, well, the people who are in your group are people like, a lot, like you got a lot of body of work here. Yeah. You have people who know them, who know you, it creates a different ecosystem. And yet I feel like we're more and more maybe kind of moving away from that as like a modality for kind of meeting for dating. And I'm curious, like how you think about that. Would you date kind of from within our community? Why or not?
I need to think on it for a second.
I can jump in, like
unscripted.
So our event, one of the primary reason, like I never planned on doing a dating event. It was the number one requested event from our community, right? So that was a pure market demand, right? Like,
give the people what they want.
Yeah, it's like, and we have a wait list of over 300 people at our last event, right? So then, and one of the main reasons is explicitly that. It's like, hey, I need space. I don't want to date within my own church, right? Because it's weird or it's awkward or I've had bad experiences with it. I have mixed feelings about it, right? Like, I think, one, at the end of the day, if your core belief is that you're looking intentionally for that one person, all you need is one person, right? Like, and wherever that comes from, like, let it be wherever it comes from. And I love what Drew says in his emotionally healthy dating course that he says, like, asking someone to coffee is not a marriage proposal.
Yeah.
Right? Like, exploring the opportunity of something is not getting to know someone to see if there's something there or not. Like, the pursuit of that that's not a bad thing, right? Like, don't be weird, don't be a creep, don't be inappropriate, like all of the basic stuff, like, let's cover that. But outside of that, like, getting to know someone, be like, hey, I'm interested in you. Like, do you want to, have a conversation, right? I think that's okay, right? I think there's a barrier into today's society where like vulnerability and like kind of putting yourself out there is no longer a thing, right? Like, and technology is meant to be an extension of human ability, but oftentimes it's used and abused in a way to kind of protect us or safeguard against vulnerability or things, right? It's so much easier to swipe than it is to ask someone and maybe get rejected. Like, it's just part of the process. And I think, we need reps, like, like anything else in life, you need to be doing something. Like, people are like, a lot of people are just awkward. You need to get to like, hey, you need to like some practice getting to know people, asking the right questions, all of these things. Maybe that happens within church, maybe it doesn't, right? But I think it's like being open, like, and not having that scarcity mindset of like, I can't date at church. It's like, what if your person is at church? Right? So, but at the same time, it's like, I get it. It's like, hey, I've explored my church. I haven't met anyone. Then great, go look outside, right? Like, like I don't think it needs to be these hard lines. Is my point. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you make an interesting point just on the rejection side of things, because just people aren't in situations a lot of the time where that comes up, or now there's such a fear around it. And I'm not saying that it doesn't hurt, but it's not the end of the world, or it won't be the end of the world. Yeah, I think that if any of my friends are watching this, they know I spent a year doing what I called rejection therapy. Yeah. And every week I had to go up to a person, more than not male, and say something, whether it was a compliment or ask them for coffee or something, for pretty much a year and a half. And it honestly was the best thing that I ever did, because I feel like there can be so much pressure on even just having a simple conversation. Now, granted, I love talking to strangers, so I get that that's also that's something for me too. But I just feel like taking the weight and pressure out of, just a coffee not being, I'm asking this person for coffee, and if this doesn't go well, or if they say no, like, I have to move church. Like, it's like everyone needs to take a deep breath. It's all going to be okay. And then also it's also like, oh, okay, someone goes around, they're like, oh, Jaclyn asked him to coffee and he said no. Oh, like, embarrassing. It's not embarrassing, Oh, put myself out there. Yeah. God forbid,
I'm gonna put some shine on Jaclyn. Truly, it's something about you I admire so much. We were just hanging out. We were on the couch, and she was on an app, and she was like, I like him. And then she just shot her shot. And I was like, and you were like, well, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And I just loved that attitude. And this is before I was attempting the apps, but it's not something that you see often. I think that a lot of times we'll see hemming and hawing, like, should I, shouldn't I? And Jaclyn was like, I'm just going to go for it. So as to what you said, Andy, about getting reps in, if anyone's looking for a mentor in that, Jaclyn right here. I'm selling your services.
Rejection coach.
It's so good. I mean, truly though, I think that you can speak about it so confidently because you've put in the work. You've gotten your reps in, and that. I mean, I'm on the apps now, even though I've said that I really like my singleness, because I am trying. This is me trying to get some reps in. I am like, for so many years, I was like, do you want to get married, Dorcas? I don't know. I guess I will, because that's just what happens. If it doesn't, it's actually not just what happens, actually. And I was enjoying that, and still kind of am. But as I'm trying to answer the question for myself, I'm doing a bit of exposure therapy with the apps. I am trying, when I say trying, you understand, because, I can get into it later. But I've been trying to put myself out there in this context of dating, because I'm trying to figure out whether or not this could be for me. And I'm going into it with open hands, dealing with boys ending chats when I say that, hey, I'm actually trying to do this seriously and I'm not just here for hookups. And it's been really interesting. I've learned some things about myself. I am really grateful for the laughs, the stories that have come out of some of these close encounters. That your response, Andy, about getting reps in, exposure therapy, I just wanted to cluster on that and share that it is at the very least fun. It can be fun if you make it fun. This dating can and should be fun and not a source of stress. Yes.
That's so great. I would love to see that happen. I think even, I don't know, like, as a pastor of a church, I'm like, I get that, like, dating can be awkward, it can be painful, there can be miscommunication, all that stuff. I would love to see our community be formed in a way in which people could like hold that. Yeah. And as Jaclyn said, like, not have it be like, well, gotta go find another church, like it's like, cool, like we can roll with all of that, and maybe you find somebody on the apps, like maybe you find somebody at Hope or whatever community you're part of, but it's just not automatically like ruled off the list, because like we wouldn't know what to do if somebody said no. So I love that, and I think that actually goes well into our final question. This one is for the ladies. Dory, Andy, will get your thoughts on this too. This is for the ladies. There are a few guys I'm curious about at church. How do I show interest while also not forcing or manipulating the situation so that I'm abiding by God's plan, will, timing? It's so hard to wait well When the hints don't seem to be hinting, sigh.
Sigh. Dating in 2026. Sigh.
The hints don't be hinting. Sigh.
Jaclyn, it sounds like you've been trying to be a little more
Yeah.
direct in some of your approach. Like,
Yeah, I think that for me, growing up and definitely in college, I had this mindset more of, I don't want, what the Lord has for me, will come to me. And I do believe that. But I think in my early 20s and living in the city, I've started to just learn a lot more that, it's okay to be proactive. It's okay to initiate. I'm not saying, you're always making the first move. And I know I might sound a little crazy here, like I'm running up to everyone talking to them, which might be what I look like. But I think that there is something where, it's okay to ask someone for coffee, or maybe you start serving on the same team. Maybe you start kind of getting plugged in.
Like the kids in Tots team?
Like the kids in Tots team at home. No, shameless plug. But, maybe it's something where you can start to, I don't know, see where your circles cross, if it's something that you want to pursue further. I don't think it's manipulative or getting in the way to ask someone for a coffee or, try to sense that. Yeah.
Yes, I agree. Also, I'm a more forward person. And if I like you, you'll probably know because I'll tell you. And I think that this is a skill of mine in the way that you are really good at just shooting your shot. I think that if I do take interest in someone, I, for the most part, will tell them if you're in the same country at the very least as me. And I know that that's not everyone's cup of tea. I know that can be hard, but if the hints aren't hinting and they really could be someone that you could see yourself dating short-term or even long-term, like we've said, like it's not the end of the world. And if this person is at your church campus, Pastor Drew said this years ago at a young adult retreat. He was like, hey, if things feel awkward at Midtown, you can go to East Village or what's that? He was like, we have a multi-campus church. He said, take advantage of that. I mean, so if you need a break, I guess, if things have gotten to that point where you can't come to service without being distracted, like, oh, is that person looking, or you're self-conscious, then maybe take a break and go to another campus, change your commute for a little bit and go back. I think that we are human. We have feelings. We get hurt. I think there's totally room, especially at a multi-campus church, for that. For the person who asked the previous question, I do want to say, like, I totally understand not wanting to risk your church, your safe space, by, potentially asking someone. I know that it can feel like a risk. Like, what will I do if they say no and I can't be in the same space without that hanging over my head that I was rejected by this person? That's a vulnerable space to be in. But it is not the end of the world. Rejection is unfortunately a part of human life. So facing it, I think, can be a good thing.
Yeah. And I also just wanted to say too, before I did my little rejection therapy thing for about 1.5 years, I could not speak to, I was not confident at all to go up to someone and ask them for coffee. Never. That would have never happened. Could not ask a guy for coffee or anything like that up until about 1 year ago. So I'm not coming from a place of, I've always been really confident in this area in my life. I was actually I turned 22, moved to New York City, and I was like, how do I function? And I think I was starting to realize that it was hindering me a bit to not be able to have these conversations and take the pressure off of them, which is why I started that whole thing. So I think if you're really nervous about maybe asking a guy out at church or asking him for coffee, or getting involved, you don't have to start with the guy at church that you're interested in, because the first couple times that I was doing that, it did hurt. And I had a very different reaction than I do now. And so if you don't want to have maybe that reaction in your church setting and then feel like, oh my gosh, this is devastating and embarrassing, which is how I felt sometimes at the beginning. Maybe there's warm-up reps, there's other people that maybe talk to some other people, kind of get some of those reps out of the way, start to feel a little bit more confident in that. And then maybe can drop those hints at church. And then if it comes your way, great. And if it doesn't, it won't feel as, I guess, high stress, high pressure as it does in the beginning.
Yeah. I don't know if this is exactly where this person is coming from, but I have been in Christian circles where the kind of expectation, the cultural norm was like the guys are supposed to be the ones to make the first move, right? And like you don't want to jump the gun. And so I wonder if part of the dynamic is this woman is, she's kind of trying to put down what she can put down, but this guy isn't kind of picking up what she's putting down. And she's wondering, okay, well, could I go a little bit further? So Andy, I'm wondering, like, would you be willing to speak for men everywhere? Like, how would you feel if a woman approached you with kind of a more direct invitation to a date or a conversation?
I'm all for it. I think it's great, and it's become more common than not, right? And ultimately, man or woman, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Yes, cluster.
Right? It's just,
So true.
I mean, so if you're curious and there's an itch, again, it doesn't mean a marriage proposal, right? Just because you have a crush on someone doesn't mean that you're going to like them after the first date too, right? So it's you have to go through the motions. So I think oftentimes, for me, that barrier and that fear is just, it really comes down to insecurities and fears, right? Because so much of our identity is driven by validation, right? And the ultimate vulnerability and kind of breakdown of that validation is when someone rejects us, right? So then for me, that deep work has always been, is my identity in Christ, is my relationship with God, that is the only, that should be the only thing that is validating my identity, right? So then when I pursue someone and it doesn't happen the way that I want to, whether it's a coffee invite or a date invite, it's saying more about that person than it is about me, right? What their relationship, what they're looking for, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? So it's not an attack on them. It's they have their world and their relationship with Christ, and I have mine, right? And I pursued something to see if there was a bridge there, and there wasn't, and that's okay. And I can go on, right? I can ask the next person for coffee, right? And I do, I will preface this, obviously the pursuit is different for a man and a woman, right? And, again, as a guy, I think it's okay for a woman to ask out, right? And yeah, it's going to suck either way if it's rejected, right? But again, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
If I may add, I'm full of anecdotes today, but I do have an example of a girl. We were going to church, and she's from a tradition where when they teach about dating, it's about girls are to be pursued, men pursue, and women are to be pursued. And she developed a crush on a boy because we were going to a non-denominational mixed church. And I was like, if you're waiting, and I'm speaking this way because she was a friend. I was like, if you're waiting for him, I don't know that this will work out, because he, from what I could see, was from a more progressive movement where they were like, anyone can pursue anybody, man or female, you can just go for it. Girls can lead too. And I was like, if you're waiting for me, I don't think this will work. So if you want to go for it, I think you'll have better odds at making this go from, we just glance at each other sometimes during welcoming, to we're going on dates. And she did. And this came up later on in their relationship. And he was like, oh yeah, I wasn't sure you liked me as much as I liked you. And so I didn't think this was going to go anywhere. But because she took that first step, they were able to, date, and they're still dating now. So if this person or anyone asking this question is from a tradition of I am to be pursued, I would ask if the people that you're interested in are also part of that same tradition. Because if they're not, you might miss your shot. Because if you're waiting around, that's just an anecdote I wanted to share. Andy, thank you for saying that you are open to being pursued. Because growing up in the Christian tradition that I did, I grew up in the tradition of women are to be pursued. So you wait. I just had an auntie tell me in my grown big adult age, she was like, I hope you're not out there chasing. They should be chasing you. And I was like, okay, auntie. Oh man, we were at a wedding. And when you were at a wedding, Any and all aunties will ask you about your dating status and give you all the advice. So I just had to take it. I know she loves me, so it's fine. But that is something that if I were to date someone within the tradition that I grew up in, that is something that I realize would be I'm thinking on this now as I'm sharing it. I would I'd basically turn anyone and everyone off if they're not expecting me to take that first step, because I'm not necessarily a waiter if the feelings are there.
Yeah.
Just some thoughts.
Yeah. Appreciate that. Good. Well, hey guys, I want to thank you so much for this conversation. I thought you all just had amazing things to share and contribute, but also just how you shared them, both in this posture of vulnerability, but also humility. Like we're just figuring it out. And I felt like the note that I kept hearing over and over again was really just one of grace, like how to be more gracious towards ourselves, how to be more gracious towards others, how to like lower some of these stakes that often seem to just to get elevated higher and higher and higher, and be like, hey, we can kind of figure this out together, and we can be in a community together. We can love one another. And like, there might be moments where we're licking our wounds a little bit, and that's okay. Like we can keep moving forward in a way that honors who we are, that honors who others are. And believes, hey, like we are loved by God at the end of the day. And okay, let's just see what following Jesus brings us into. So thank you guys for contributing such a great conversation. I trust it'll be an encouragement to our people. I certainly hope it will be, but if not for anything else, I had a good time. So
That's great.
thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
May I say one more thing?
Sure.
If that's possible. I would want to share, because my family group has just done a study on solitude. And I think that it's really easy when we're talking about dating to like come to God with all the questions and anxieties. And I would just want to share with anyone who is dating with questions, dating intentionally, dating in pursuit, to have moments of quiet in solitude and ask God, what do you have to say to me about this? Without any petitions, without any agenda on my end, without me like bringing and spilling out my desires, which you already know because you know the desires of my heart, God. Like, what do you have to share with me about dating? The practice of solitude in moments of anxiety and real uncertainty has been really helpful for me. And I would want to share that with anyone who's wondering about dating and on that journey. Yeah.
Awesome. Great.
Thanks
Thank
so
you.
much.
Yeah. Well, to those listening at home, this conversation happened because people from our community send in some great questions. So if you have questions that you're sitting with, whether it be about dating or about cultural issues or the Bible or whatever kind of big topics you're sitting at, please send them in. We'll have a link in the show notes, and we'd love for you to, be a part of this conversation with us, because we're not just sitting here talking about things that we think are important. Like we want to be engaged in the conversations that our community thinks is important and worth shining some light on. So yeah, couldn't do it without you. Please keep the questions coming. We got some more good episodes coming up down the road. And again, thanks for being a part of this great project. No Bad Questions. Episode 2, signing out.